We need to update a report submitted last week about a man who performed a miracle on Shabbat and then told the healed person to commit a sin and to file
Wait.
an addendum linking this report to my original petition.
Slow down.
We have a name.
The offender is known. The petition is in regards to an incident in Capernaum.
Ah, yes. I know about this case.
That inquiry must be updated when...
The inquiry was closed.
What? Why not? But this is a huge development. The inquiry must be...
Slow down.
Why?
No further questions asked. All I could tell you is wait. Slow down.
What's up, peeps on YouTube? Today we're talking about The Chosen. That's what we're talking about. I wish you guys could see my studio setup right now because it is literally so crowded in here. But it's awesome. I love it. Look, here's a snapshot real quick. Take a look at this. This is what I work with every day. And you know what? I love it. So guys, we're going to be taking a look at The Chosen, doing a review of episode 5. It's been a while, like 2 months since I've done a review. I've just been busy and working on other stuff. But it's about time. So we have a lot of cool stuff that happens this episode. So let's dive in, take a look, and talk about, is it garbage or is it good? But before we do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because if you don't, I'm gonna have to do a handstand and I really don't want to, actually I do want to do a handstand. Well, here's an episode of Top 10 Ways to Kill Yourself. Yo! Close enough, close enough. So this episode we're talking about today heavily focuses on Mary. So we start off the episode setting the tone for everything that happens. Mainly I'm focused in this part of the episode of actually picking persimmons. When I was a kid growing up on a farm, like we had wild persimmon trees, but they probably got like this big. Like I literally did not know until later in life they get like as big as tomatoes, which like I've never actually had a persimmon, I don't think. I don't even know what they taste like. But in this part of the episode, she's quoting some scriptures, sees a couple Roman soldiers and runs in fear. And later in the episode, is very like upset about that because it's like she's reading these scriptures that should be giving her courage and boldness, but yet at the same time her faith is being tried and she reacts in fear and feels ashamed because of it. So the episode also focuses lightly on Jesse, Simon's brother, who was healed in the last episode. 2 Pharisees are actually interrogating him because they're upset for some reason that he was healed because it was on Shabbat and it's so sinful to do good stuff on Shabbat, I guess. And so they're interrogating him, trying to get some information, but they're not really getting a lot of information. Atticus Emilius, or is it Emilius Atticus? I don't even know at this point. He's still eating. He literally, and he also interrogates, but it's not so much of an interrogation. He chats with Jesse, tries to play the good guy.
It's safe. Jesse, you can tell me.
Jesse, don't trust him. He's a bad man. He's evil. He's horrible. So we're at this point, we're still setting the tone for the episode a little bit. So Simon is out exercising, doing little exercise and training. He encounters a demon-possessed man, which does play later into this episode. And not a whole lot happens with this interaction. Simon, unable to help him, basically leaves him at this point because he is tracking down Jesus and his disciples and sets up outside of their camp and watches them. He's got those beady little eyes. Can you see those beady little eyes watching you? Because he's watching you, Simon. He's trying to find you. Okay? And he will. Because he's Simon. But the portrayal of the demon-possessed man is pretty interesting because I personally have never encountered that in my life. But it is pretty interesting seeing a portrayal of that in film, and I feel like they did a pretty good portrayal. You don't want to overly glorify it by making it seem like something that you should be overly afraid of, and Simon just keeps his cool through the interaction, which is pretty great. So meanwhile at camp, Mary and Brahma are studying the Torah. Mary's pretty frustrated because she's struggling with her studies, and so it's a pretty annoying time for her, honestly, while Matthew and Thomas are stuck behind preparing food while everyone else goes out doing the guy stuff. Thomas is of course upset because no one likes Matthew.
Is it because I was a tax collector?
You were a tax collector?
You knew that.
And yes, it's because you were a tax collector.
How many times are they gonna beat the dead dog or the dead horse or whatever the figure of speech is about Matthew being a tax collector? He's not a tax collector anymore. Also, he says that Matthew's arrogant.
I don't think you're right. I'm very humble.
I don't think that's how humility works, but hey, at least claps for wanting to be humble. And then also accuses him of...
And why are you watching Rayma so closely?
I'm not watching her.
Oh, you're collecting Torah verses? You're donating your tablets?
They're easy to get.
Do you like her?
What? That would actually explain why Thomas doesn't like you, Matthew. So stop watching, Rayma. Or maybe don't. So after this, Jesus meets up with John the Baptist.
John's never where you expect him to be.
We all know Jesus wasn't actually startled. I mean, he already knew John was going to jump out before he did it, right? You gotta remember they're actually related, they're cousins. And this is a really cool scene. They have some really interesting, deep dialogue talking about how John is planning to go confront Herod, who is basically the leader that the Romans have put in charge of Judea. And he's going to confront him for marrying his brother's ex-wife, which is virtually incest. And so they have a pretty interesting dialogue. It's pretty awesome seeing these two great minds kind of rub shoulders and even butt heads a little bit, while John takes more of a go for it, go getter, kind of dive in head first without looking kind of approach. And Jesus tends to be more of a planner and a thinker. That's how he's portrayed in this episode.
You're the planning type. I always say the first thing that comes to my mind. In preaching and in life.
Yeah, John, I tend to do that a lot too, so you're not the only one in that boat. And John is actually a little bit frustrated with Jesus because in his eyes, Jesus isn't as focused on specifics as far as specific law infractions, versus he is very focused on those minute details where to him, Jesus seems to be focused more on the big things, even though it's not at the expense of the small things necessarily. So they have a kind of interaction where they see things differently. I don't exactly completely like the way John was portrayed. He's almost portrayed as an attention seeker to an extent that he kind of seems a little bit almost prideful.
I'm gonna march straight into his court and I'm gonna tell him to his face. My followers will love it.
You do know how that's going to end, don't you?
I get arrested all the time. It's what radicals do.
That might just be the way that I see it and not how he's actually meant to be portrayed. But you know, at the same time, he is human. Jesus is fully God, fully human, but John is just fully human. So he is being displayed in kind of a flawed manner, but yet used by God. So I'm not completely diametrically opposed to the way he was portrayed. It's just a little bit differently than I was expecting. But meanwhile, back at camp, at this point, we're 22 minutes into the episode, and all that Matthew and Thomas have managed to do is cut cucumbers. Like, I don't think it takes 22 minutes to cut a cucumber. You know what? I bet that I could cut a cucumber faster than Matthew and Thomas could. All right, everybody, it is your boy Joseph with the Joseph Cooking Show. Yeah. Faced today with this seemingly impossible challenge. Can I cut a cucumber? The world's longest cucumber, faster than the characters in The Chosen. The odds are against me, but I think it's something I can do. So let's go ahead and have at it, shall we? Ready, set, go! Well, I guess I won. But after this point, I told you before that the demoniac, the man who's possessed with a demon, was going to play a bigger role later in the episode. He wanders into camp. I don't even know if he knows where he's going at this point, but he wanders into camp and confronts the four of them that are left behind. And Matthew and Thomas rush over to protect the girls. Matthew grabs a spoon. Like, unless this is Chex Quest, I actually loved that game when I was a kid, but unless this is Chex Quest, I don't know if that's gonna do you much good. But they have a really interesting interaction, and the demon particularly confronts Mary, starts to bring up her past, which really shakes Mary to the core. It turns into a violent confrontation, at which point Simon actually jumps in, who was watching them, to attack the demon, but the demon manages to overpower Simon because while he was training in military practices, I doubt they ever trained him on how to fight a demon-possessed man. Somehow I don't think that was in the curriculum.
111, 112, 113, 114, 115.
Steven, I'm gonna teach you militarily how to fight and defeat virtually anything in combat. People, monsters, animals, teddy bears, you name it. I really would like the cognitive ability, muscular capability to find a demon-possessed man. Is that something that you can teach me? No! But at this moment, Jesus rushes in to save the day, casts the demon out. Awesome moment. Woo! Give it up for Jesus. That's right. Give it up for Jesus. When he turns his attention to Simon, most of us already know Simon is going to become one of the 12 apostles at one point, and so we're just waiting for the moment when he actually joined the squad. Him and Jesus have a really interesting conversation where they chat for a while and kind of have an initiation conversation. Simon, realizing that Jesus is the Messiah, desires to follow him. Jesus wants him to follow him, and so they have that conversation, and Jesus hints a little bit at the fact that, you know, he's not exactly everything Simon thinks he's going to be. Simon is expecting a militaristic Messiah, and Jesus is not a militaristic Messiah. He goes against what a lot of people have been expecting.
Show me your weapon. Impressive. Didn't see that coming.
And so he tells him a little bit about his vision and plans as the Messiah. So it's a pretty great moment. We've been waiting for it. It's great to see it happen. Meanwhile, the two Pharisees who hate when Jesus does good things, they are about to try to press an inquiry into the actions of Jesus until they find out that for some reason a member of the Sanhedrin, very likely Nicodemus, but they're not told that, has shut down the previous inquiries into Jesus's actions. This guy over here, literally, like, if he doesn't make it in religion, he could definitely make it as an auctioneer.
We need to update a report submitted last week about a man who performed a miracle on Shabbat and then told the healed person to commit a sin, and to file an addendum linking this report to my original petition.
Wait.
Bro, chill. So they basically decide to use a little bit of strategy and almost kind of like some politics. They decide to try to split the Sanhedrin over this matter, hoping that they can get a majority by making this case kind of emotional and offering it to a ranking member of the Sanhedrin so that he can adopt this case as a stepping stool for him to gain some following within the Sanhedrin and gain some attention and prestige. Meanwhile, this is where the main controversial part of the episode comes into play. Mary, so shaken by her interaction with the demon, begins to slip back into her old lifestyle of alcoholism and sexual immorality, going back into one of her old places that she used to lurk. It's a really sad moment seeing her make that mistake. A lot of people didn't like that, more or less thinking, you know, Mary was in the presence of Jesus Christ. How could she fall back into that lifestyle after interacting with Jesus? And a lot of people were very upset with that. And the director of The Chosen actually made a video talking about this. And I tend to side with him. I don't know if this is so much a matter of Arminianism versus Calvinism. I wouldn't say particularly, but it is a matter where, you know, even when you've lived and walked in the presence of Jesus Christ, it is possible to fall from that. You're not going to walk perfectly for the rest of your life. You're going to make mistakes, and ultimately God is going to pursue you. And if you do end up surrendering your will back to Christ, you will come back around. It's an interesting discussion, and it's a sad moment seeing Mary make that decision, but ultimately we know she's not going to stay there, and that's what's comforting. So it's a pretty, in recap, I literally haven't even written any notes on what I think about this episode. I'm literally at 20 minutes right now recording unedited. My back is sweaty. Oh, I have to be at work at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Pretty interesting. It's gonna be great. But all in all, I enjoyed this episode. It definitely was not one of my favorite episodes. It didn't strike me as powerful of an episode, but it was still a really good episode, and it still lives up to the standards set by The Chosen. There are some pretty interesting moments, some really deep conversations, and seeing some of the politics that happened behind the scenes, I sucked that up and I loved it. So it's really a continuation of a great theme that's done by The Chosen. So in a nutshell, that's my review. Want to hear what you guys think? Comment, subscribe, everything else, like, and live life 500%, yeah. Go do something cool before summer's over. All right, guys. Oh, it's over. This video's done.